So we've just made a graph by hand on graph paper, and that's good. You need to learn how to do that, and so you understand how to make graphs and how to make them useful. But it's also a good idea to learn how to use a spreadsheet program. This is Google Sheets, but there are others, Microsoft Excel and some others. Google Sheets is used by a lot of schools, and I believe it's free with a Google account. So that's what I'm using here. Now, spreadsheets are really, really useful when you're doing a calculation over and over and over again. So if I had lots of numbers I needed to take an average of, kind of like in this experiment, I could have entered all the data into a spreadsheet and then set one of the columns equal to the average of the other ones, and it would do all the calculations for me. But I've already got my average heights here, so I entered the averages right there, and I've got my average pressures, so I entered them there. I just type them in. I could type here x axis and y axis, and I can select those cells and change the formatting. I can center the text. I can make it bold. I can change some things, change the font size. So go ahead and play around and see what you can find and how you can format the data. But that's just to make it look nice. The important thing is the right numbers are entered in these columns. Now I'm going to highlight the data and click Insert Chart. So the spreadsheet program guesses what kind of chart to put in here. You can change it if you want, but I actually really like scatter charts for this type of data. There's a lot of different kinds, but it already picked scatter, and that's what I always use. Now we can change the scale like we did with our graph we made by hand. So I'm going to click on the scale here. I'm going to just click on the 200 right there. Anywhere in this box is fine, and it brings up the horizontal axis format area. And I'm going to scroll down and find the minimum. And the minimum is already 0, but I'll just go ahead and put that in there anyway. And the maximum should be up around 400. I know that works well, so I'll just use 400. Now I'm going to click on the y-axis scale, and they started with a minimum of 0, but that's not very useful. I can't see any relationship here with the data. It's all clumped too close together. I have to spread that out more. So I know that if I start with 100,000, 740, and I go to 100,000, 785, it works really well. Now I have the scales chosen, and my data looks very nice. But I want to fit a line to that. Now I don't have to guess here. Excel and Google Sheets and other spreadsheet programs do the mathematical process to find the line that's the best fit through these points. So I'm just going to click on I'm going to double click on my chart to bring up the editor box on the right-hand side here. And I'm going to click Customize and Series. And then I'm going to scroll down and add a trend line. That best fit line is called the trend line. Now that trend line is really useless without the equation. I would need to know the equation of that line. So I'm going to click here where it says label. I'm going to say use the equation of the line. And so here it is. This equation should really read y is equal to negative 0.113 times x plus 100,784. So that's the equation of the line. And now we can use that to find our prediction height. This is the equation of the line that Google Sheets gave us. Remember the equation of a line. Y is equal to the slope, m, times the x-coordinate plus the y-intercept. Y is equal to mx plus b. So in this case, our slope is negative 0.113, and our y-intercept is 100,784. But what is y and x? Y is the value from the y-axis. So in our case, that's the pressure. X is the value from the x-axis. And in our case, that's the height. So if we know one of these, like the pressure, we can plug that in and solve for the height. And that's what we're going to do. So I went ahead and filled in my prediction pressure, and everything on the right side of the equation stays the same as I had up above. And now, if I go through and do my math properly, I can solve to see what the height is at this pressure. So the first thing I'm going to do is add 0.113 times x to both sides. And I'm going to get 100,744 plus 0.113 times x is 0 plus 100,784. Now I'm going to subtract 100,744 from both sides. And on the left side of my equation, I'm just left with 0.113 times x. We use that asterisk to indicate multiplication a lot of times when you're using a computer. And on the right side of this equation, that leaves me with 40. Now what do? I divide the left side by 0.113, and I divide the right side by 0.113, and that gives me x is equal to 354 centimeters. And when I measured the height, my actual value was 355 centimeters, so very close.